Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I take an opportunity to learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. And joining me for surprisingly only the third time is my very frequent collaborator and friend, Mike Hilty. Thank you so much for coming on.
It has only been three times for this, but that's
For this.
okay. You know, it's all good. We'll remedy that today. So it's all good.
Absolutely. Do plenty of other recordings of different kinds of stuff together. But
Right.
before we jump into my questions, would you like to shamelessly plug anything new and exciting that you happen to be doing?
Sure. So I started a podcast network. So it is called the SPDM Crew of Podcasts. We currently have seven podcasts. Um, I'm doing three of them. So I'm doing one called Family Movie Night, which is something that I do with my daughter, where we review the movie that we watch for Family Movie Night. I'm doing one on sports where we interview people about the sports team that they like or just kind of their perspective on sports. Doing a TV show one because of course I am. Our frequent collaborator Luke is doing one where he interviews people kind of similar to this, talking about movies. It's called Flicks and Chill. I got a buddy of mine who's also named Mike. Him and a teacher that he had in high school. They're doing a podcast together. And you are doing two pods. You're doing a wrestling one, Ruthless
Yep.
Obsession. Subscribe uh, wherever you get your podcast, and you'll be bringing some stuff over from our old friends at Scribe. So
Be doing the
you
Wasteland retrospective, and Mike will be one of my four monthly collaborators. So, what else is new? So,
yeah.
we'll be taking a dive into some classic films. And yes, I'm having a lot of fun with my new wrestling podcast with our friend Diana. And Diana is like my one wrestling friend that I have. So, you know what? We get to talk wrestling together. So that's a lot of fun. But you should all definitely go follow the new network. And I have like, I think I have like 20 minutes left of Heath's uh, uh, Flicks and Chill episode for
Mhm.
Luke's podcast. Yes, my episodes are not over 2 hours long, nor do we get personal. Um, at least not in the perspective outside of movies. So, and we'll not be having a conversation over what's better pizza, Chicago style or New Jersey pizza.
Yeah,
So,
not it's not even a question. It's clearly I have the right
all I
answer
can
to
say
that.
is I would definitely eat either of them over what Heath described as St. Louis pizza.
Oh,
Um,
mm, okay, fair enough.
it was like cracker thin with provolone cheese on top. An interesting combination.
Doing what are we doing? Okay, but I
Oh, I'm
shouldn't
not doing
be
it.
I
We're not
I
doing anything.
I shouldn't be one to talk. Whereas my pizza is pretty much a casserole from Chicago, so it's
At
fine.
least John Stewart has said that.
That's fair.
Who's also from New Jersey. He actually went to the high school in the town that my college that I work at is in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. Small world. But let's get things started. So, I'm a big connoisseur of doing movie marathons. I do it on a monthly basis. But, Mike, if you had a whole day open, what movie marathon would you do?
So I would actually steal from CinemaSins and do the best of the years that I've been alive, something like that.
Okay.
Um, I would take all the years that I've been alive and kind of curate them kind of based on the ones that either had the most influence on me or the ones that I just like the best. Um, I would take a lot of time to figure that out. And some of the years it's going to be pretty sparse, but
Hmm.
there's every year there's something of great significance. And I want to try to balance it out a little bit and make sure that I'm not just picking all like superhero movies. or anything like that, I will make sure that there's going to be a good mix of different things, different genres, and throw in some international ones in there as well because it's definitely an important part of my cinematic viewing history. So might as well share that with everybody as well.
Awesome. I like
Yeah.
that idea. You need a time turner to fit in every year, but you know what? We'll do our best.
Well,
So,
it's either that or I would pick like top five or six that would definitely be up there because some of them are going to be long. Like for
yeah,
example, like Lord of the Rings, like any of those, like I could pick any one of them. I'd probably pick the Two Towers because it's my favorite, but I got to do the extended edition and that's longer, so got to make sure to plan accordingly as well.
absolutely. All I believe that one's 3 hours and 40 minutes.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
with 40 minutes of extra material. Go full blown Return of the King, all 4 hours and 10 minutes of it. At least the credits are like 15 minutes of it.
Hmm.
A lot of credits. But my next question for you, so say that you had a friend who's never seen a movie before. Movie would you show them?
This is a tough question because you don't want to show something that's absolutely amazing and then it's just going to be downhill from there.
Fair.
So I think I would pick something right in the middle, something that's going to make them laugh, and something where you're not really going to have to show them much of anything else in order for them to get it. So, the couple movies that I thought of right off the bat that I would probably show, I'm thinking I'm thinking like early Adam Sandler movie.
Nice.
Like I would probably do something along the lines of Billy Madison because Happy Gilmore, uh, you're not really going to get why it's so funny that Carl Weathers is there. You're not really going to understand, how much of a jerk Shooter McGavin is because of just all the sports movie
Mm.
tropes. So Billy Madison, though, something funny like that, or or even like an early Jim Carrey movie as well, when he is at like the absolute height of his powers. I personally would pick something along the lines of Liar Liar because I love Liar Liar. I think it's one of his most underrated movies. And it's a good mix of it's got a surprising amount of heart and it's also shockingly funny. So that's kind of my mindset there because I didn't want to go like full scale, let's show a crap movie and it's like we've got nowhere to go but up, buddy. But I didn't want to do it the other way either, where it's like, well, I think I'm going to show you The Godfather, and I don't think much of anything is going to hold a candle to this, not for at least for a very long time.
Yeah, Billy Madison would definitely be a wonderful pick. What are you looking at, Schwan?
I award
I
you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
shut your
Something that I say on a weekly basis minimum.
uh, you know, simple, wrong would suffice. We are all now dumber
Mhm.
for listening to it. Oh my God. Billy Madison's so great. It is like the peak of just immature Sandler humor.
Mhm.
It's so funny. Now, sequels are a very interesting discussion at this point because we get so many of them. But what's a film that you actually think should get a sequel?
There are there are a lot that you could potentially choose from to get a sequel. And I think right up there, the movie that I think I'd want a sequel of the most is probably Inception. And the reason why I think that there's more to explore of this world, I I I also want to know what happened at the top. Come on, like what happened there? So I would probably say Inception is pretty high up there with a nod to with a nod to the nice guys as
Oh,
well.
there it is.
I think there's I think there's more story to tell there, and I think even if you just move them out of their current, their current year and move them up a little bit, I think it would just be I think it would still translate really well.
Hey, Russell Crowe wants to do it. And they
I
had
don't
an
know.
idea for them go to Mexico.
Oh, dear Lord, that would be great. That would be so good.
And Inception would be something special. I don't think Nolan's ever going to do it, but you know what? Never say never.
I mean, he's gonna win an Oscar coming up soon. So, at that point, is Nolan just gonna be like, you know what? I'm in the effort stage of my career right now. Let's do some sequels. Why not?
I
I
think he,
highly doubt it, but
I
it's
think he might
probably
be
very
too
likely.
British to get to that point, but or specifically too English to get to that point.
Ah,
But you know what? Hey, once he wins Best Picture and Best Director this year, he doesn't have to be trying to win any of them Oscars anymore. So he could get really bold,
mhm.
try to even one up Tenant. Now, in terms of just sheer Nolanness. But what is a film from your childhood, Mike, that you have not watched in a long time that you would most want to go back and check out?
Well, and this one's also tricky as well because I have two kids and we do family movie night. So
Mhm.
I've gone back and watched a pretty good amount of those movies
Like
already.
Casper?
Yes, we watched Casper, we watched Willy Wonka, everything like that. So I'm thinking back to some movies that I have been trying to get my daughter to watch that she is just not interested in watching. And I think top of mind up there for me is The Land Before Time. Like the first one. I none of the other sequels or anything like that. I don't need Land Before Time 11, Electric Boogaloo or anything like that. No, I don't need that. Just the original Land Before Time. And the reason why is because now that I'm a parent, I think that scene that everybody knows who was born in the 80s, who it just devastating. I think that part is going to hit me so much harder now that I'm a parent. And then my daughter is going to be like, Dad, why are you crying? Being such a baby. Like, you're a robot.
Does she also say that during Bluey?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There have been a couple Bluey episodes that I've teared up at, and look, it's just a special show, man.
It
I'm
is
not afraid
special.
to admit it.
I keep trying to get my wife to agree to do a podcast on Bluey. She said she's perfectly happy just appearing on mine. So I tried.
Mhm.
But no, I owned the first four lane before time on VHS. So I spent a lot of time watching them. Now, this is always a fun one because you go in so many different ways with it. But what's a place from a movie where you would want to actually go visit?
Yeah, that could go in a lot of different directions because I mean, for me, like obviously Middle Earth is up there. Even though I have been to New Zealand and I did go on a Lord of the Rings
So
tour.
you've been there.
Oh, well, yes, I've been there, but some of the areas that we went to, like I went to go see where Isengard was filmed. I went to go see where the elephants were. I didn't go to Hobbiton. I didn't go to Helm's Deep or anything like that because all of that stuff's on the North Island and we were on the South. However, it was still cool, and I was the only one who was like, "Does anyone know where this scene is?" I'm like, "Yes, I know. I'm that guy who knows." So, um,
I've only
so
watched this every day of my life, man.
so Lord, Middle Earth is up there. I think for me, if I'm removing that element, if I'm thinking about a movie set and also something from my childhood that I hold near and dear to my heart, it's Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. That because
That mansion exists.
it does, and also I think that would just be a cool place to visit. Just to even if I just went around the mansion listening to the old X-Men cartoon theme song the whole time, just have it on, just with AirPods on, and I would just go around smiling, looking around at everything. I think I would love that. So that would be my pick.
We got X-Men 97 coming.
I'm very excited for that. Um,
Did you also hear the
I
writer of
hope.
the 90s Spider-Man wants to make 90s Spider-Man 98 now? I'm like, don't
I
give
mean,
me hope.
if they were to do that, cool. I would love that. Not to say that some of the other Spider-Man cartoons that have been out there, they're pretty good. They just don't hold a candle to that Spider-Man series that was on at the same time as Batman the Animated Series and X-Men. It just
Wow,
doesn't.
what a peak time for us.
Mhm.
And that actually ended on a cliffhanger. So I actually want to see what happens.
Mm.
So, and it involved Madam Web.
Oh, oh.
Isn't that interesting? A lot more interesting than the movie. But now, instead of something from your childhood you want to watch now, what's something that you probably shouldn't have watched in your childhood? What's a movie that you watched way too young?
Boogie Nights, without a doubt. Note to self: um, don't watch Boogie Nights with your parents. Not a good idea.
Yep, that is good advice.
Yep. So Boogie Nights, period. Hard stop. That is the answer.
My only hope doing that would be my mom would be distracted by Burt Reynolds. And I could just be like, why am I watching this right now with this person? Now, Mike, what's a film experience that you feel like legitimately impacted your life?
Well, um, I would say there's a couple. Um, I would say the Two Towers, obviously, because that that speech that Sam gives at the end, um, I have it memorized. I have a tattoo of the earth on my shoulder with "There's some good in this world and it's worth fighting for" on it. Um, there was just something about that just had a really, really big impact. And it's something that I occasionally post that on Facebook, that speech, and you wouldn't believe how much it resonates with people. They're like, "Oh, I remember that, and I remember how that made me feel during that time." Um, I usually post that, especially when things are kind of crap around. So, and I remember distinctly the last time that I did that, it was after the 2016 election. And people were like, "Yep, I needed to hear that. I really do." So I would say that is probably pretty high up there. Um, other than that, I think I think one other one that I will give um through here and seeing. Um, yeah, I'll stick with that one. That's probably
It's
the
a pretty
answer.
darn good answer.
Mhm.
I distinctly remember when I went to go see Two Towers for the first time in theaters. And that was my first Lord of the Rings movie in theaters that I got to finish
Mm.
because my aunt didn't check the runtime for Fellowship when she took my brother and I. And we had to leave right when Frodo got stabbed by
Oh
a troll.
no.
And my aunt's like, there's not that much left in it. And then I went to school on Monday and found out from one of my classmates that there was a giant fire demon. And I'm like, I
What?
missed that.
Oh, that's such a bummer.
Well, it's okay. I've watched it plenty of times since, so I've made up
I
for it
know, but
sometimes.
just after the first time, it's like, oh, man, that's a bummer.
10-year-old Shane did not know what he was missing. Um, 32-year-old Shane certainly does.
Mhm.
Um, Now, my next question, so shifting gears to thinking a little bit about television. What's a movie you would like to turn into a TV series?
Everything, everywhere, all at once. And the reason why is because I love the dimensions that are explored, and that are these alternate realities. They don't really explore, or they don't really explore what is going on, like in the distant future that is, enabling this to actually happen. Which I think that's actually kind of interesting that they leave that a little bit on the ambiguous side. I'd love a TV show to explore that a little bit more. So I would say that's pretty high up there. Um,
It's some Raccooey. What was it?
Rakakuni, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess another one as well is that I want a proper Pacific Rim sequel. And I think a Pacific Rim TV series would actually be a lot of fun because I think one of my big problems with the original one is that it's too short. And that's not something that I say very often about a movie because, you know, we live in an age where standard runtime for a movie is well over 2 hours now. But for Pacific Rim, I could have used more of that, and because I had a blast watching that in theaters. And I think right now we're at the perfect point where we need a Pacific Rim and Godzilla versus Kong crossover. Guillermo
Let's
del
make
Toro,
it
make it
happen.
happen.
Let's make it happen.
Mhm.
You're gonna find the Jaegers in Monarch, the show.
I
And
mean, that'd
Apple's
be.
like, we gave this to you.
I mean that would be great. And also, one of the things that I love the most about Pacific Rim is we see just like a very small amount of countries and the Jaegers that they put. And they're all unique to that specific country, but I want to see more. I want to see what the Jaeger from France looks like. It's probably one
I want to see the Italian one.
the the Italian one that is riding a Vespa that turns
Russell
into like a
Crowe.
mace or something like that. I don't know. But I want to see the British one that drinks tea and, just goes at everything with like a giant sword.
Fights with fisticuffs.
Right, right. The Irish one would be drunk the whole time and, just be able to just beat the living shit out of any Jaeger out there. So I think there's just untapped potential there. Plus, also it just gives another like creative outlet to, you know, give people an opportunity to design different robots. And you know i
I think
think
that'd be a
i think
fun
that'd be a
time.
lot
I'd
of fun.
watch it.
Yeah, I
I would watch it,
agree.
and it would be on Max probably.
Hopefully.
Now, Mike, what's your favorite film romance?
This is a tough call because there's a lot out there to choose from, but there's some that for a movie, I feel like we saw the end of their story, or end of the story that the movie gave us, and that's fine. The happily ever after that is probably a little bit boring. But I think for me, I'm taking a page out of the Good Place, where the thing that makes heaven so great is that there's a finite amount of time. And I think to me, that is why my favorite movie romance is from Moulin Rouge. And it's Christian and Satine. Just they fall in love instantly. Or not instantly, but They pack a lot of their relationship into a very short amount of time. Um, and they sing to each other. And
Mm.
Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman have beautiful voices together. That ending was pretty devastating, and I hate that the jig gets pretty much revealed at the very beginning of the movie. I think if they would have kept that kind of closer to the chest, I think it would have been just a gut-wrenching ending. It
Uh-huh.
still is, but so that one's pretty high up there. Um, I mean, I do it's yeah, I think that one is pretty high up there. And then also one other one that I do like a lot is I like the two main characters from Stardust. I think they're
Oh, okay.
adorable together. So
And
those
Stardust,
those
fun movie.
it is. So I would say those two because I was racking my brain trying to figure out if there's like a Disney movie that I think would stand the test of time, but my
The tail
my
as old as
no, because she's a
Stockholm,
kidnap victim.
Stockholm syndrome.
Well, and then also, you've got two instances where you've got a Disney princess who's asleep and the prince assaults them without their consent, so that's not good. And then you have Ariel who had to pretty much change everything about her in order to get what she wanted, plus she's 16. It's a little weird.
So I would have given Beauty and the Beast so much credit if it had a Shrek ending where he doesn't turn into a handsome prince because she fell in love with the beast and she's a furry. Uh,
We need that version, and if that version came out and was directed by like old school Mel Brooks, I think that would be perfect.
oh man, that Fairy Tales is a satire spoof that we did not get from Mel Brooks that I think would be a fantastic one.
I mean, we got it a little bit in Robin Hood, Men in Tights, but not to the same extent that everything else could have
They
been
keep burning down our village every time they make credits for one of these Robin Hood movies.
done. But speaking of that, rest in peace, Richard Lewis. That's very sad
Oh yeah, that
to hear
is
about that.
unfortunate timing right now. Finch
Mhm.
John and his moving mole. And
I have
forever,
a I have a mole.
and forever, all toilets in the kingdom will be known as John.
No. Oh.
Oh man. See, now I want to watch Robin Men in Tights again. But my last question for you, Mike, is, and this is a doozy. So theoretically, you get hired to teach a film class. So what's your curriculum going to be? So these could be specific list of films, could be a theme. So
That is a tough call because there's a lot of movies out there that I'd want to add to my curriculum. So I also would take a little bit from my I took a couple film and lit classes. I took one on film noir, which I thought was fantastic. And then I took like a general grab bag one from my in high school. And some of the ones that we watched in high school, like they were so, and we paired it with books as well. So like literature, not like film study books or anything like that. Um, so a couple that kind of come to mind. Like the only one that I would probably take from that is we did kind of a study on the philosophical meaning of the meaning of life, and we did it from the perspective of what the meaning of life is to someone who was in camp or a prisoner during the Holocaust. And we read Night by Elie Wiesel, and then we did Life is Beautiful. So I think I would put that up there. Um, I would definitely do something about how like 1999 was this huge inflection year for cinema, and I would probably pick The Matrix. For
Mhm.
that, I'd pick a Hitchcock movie because I think Hitchcock is just an integral part of film history. I don't know which one I'd pick. There's a lot to choose from. I know personally, I'm a huge fan of Rear Window and Vertigo. Sorry, but
That's my
I
number one.
so so those would be up there. Um, I would pick one superhero movie because although superhero movies get a lot of crap because people are like, it's not real cinema. It's just popcorn stuff. It just makes a lot of money. Superhero movies have single-handedly saved the box office for years. Get
Mhm.
over it. So, if it wasn't for superhero movies, most of these other movies wouldn't be able to go into theaters because the theater system would probably be shut down by now. So, shut up. There is a place for all kinds of different things. So, I don't know which superhero movie I would pick. It's a toss up between like one of the Avengers movies or The Dark Knight, probably. So that'd be pretty high up there. Um, I I'd want to pick a couple other international films as well, and then I think one other thing that I would love to do for a film class is I'd love to analyze all the Oscar winners and then also talk about, okay, was this the right pick? Was this really the best picture? And in some cases, yeah,
Crash.
it's a slam dunk. Like Godfather, Godfather Part 2, all of like Schindler's List, all of those obviously
Mhm.
were the best pictures those that year. Then you go to the next year, for example, from Schindler's List, Forrest Gump. Like, really? Like Forrest Gump over Pulp Fiction, Shawshank? Really? So analyze that and also just kind of talk about the politics of Hollywood as well. So
If you need a guest lecturer, I'm sure Heath would want to be on your
I'm
Oscar
I'm
history
sh-
dive.
I'm sure Heath would be fantastic at
Mhm.
something like that. So
He
and
did
then
just
what
review Crash. Gave it like half a star.
oh, oh. Um and I think one other one that I I'd want to for film like a film class. I think one other thing that I would do would be to take films that were based on like real life people or real life situations, and then kind of talk about the impact that that movie had on and that situation had on like real life. So like one that I would immediately want to talk about would be The Social Network and
Mhm.
how Facebook, as much as it's done to bring us all together, it's also torn us apart pretty good as well. So things like that. I think that would be a really fascinating look at life imitating art and the effects of that, or art imitating life at that point.
That sounds like a very interesting class, and I would definitely take it. There's a lot of
I feel
very
like that'd be
interesting mixes there.
yeah. Well, that's my ADHD brain though, unfortunately, is that I get an idea and then just kind of think things through and then another idea pops into my head. You know,
That's okay. Like two-thirds of my like my wife and close friends have ADHD, so there you go. Solidarity.
there we go.
Now, Mike, how I always like to end this show is by having my guest ask me a question. So, what would
Th-
you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
that last one, since you are a college professor, I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
I wish I taught a film class, but I don't. I teach math. So, I teach, I was literally teaching text mining today in my business analytics class. So it was a fun time. Last semester, I pulled up a excerpt from the script of Wolf of Wall Street and put it in a word cloud to see which word popped up the most.
Mm,
Can you imagine?
no, yeah, no shock there.
But you also have to think about the stemming because is it just the F word or is it effing?
Hmm.
Technically, they're two different words, but they're from the same stem, so you have to clean your data. But anyway, to answer the question of like what class I would actually want to teach, if I could teach any class that was a film class, it would be the history of science fiction.
Hmm.
And we're going all the way back to Trip to the Moon.
Oh.
We're watching Metropolis. We're watching just like honestly probably original Frankenstein, getting into like Forbidden Planet
Mm.
and like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Like the 50s one would probably be a couple of good ones from the 50s. And then of course the when it started really blowing up in say the 70 late 60s with 2001 Space Odyssey, you get Clockwork Orange, you get obviously Star Wars, Close Encounters. Uh I would personally have to throw the thing on there. Um
Hmm.
They Live. The 80s are just filled with plenty of science fiction. Obviously, T2 Judgment Day and The Matrix from the 90s be some pretty big ones. I feel like I would go all the way up until probably Interstellar. I feel like would be a very like a good like ending point. But no, definitely the history of science fiction, and I want to do it now, right now. So maybe someday.
Maybe someday. I think that would be a fascinating class. So we've talked a lot about a lot of movies because we collaborate a lot. I've never asked you about your list of shame. So can you give me your top five movies on your list of shame? Even though you watch everything. So I kind of think that that list of shame is going to be pretty obscure movies that's like, oh, yeah, that sounds like something that you'd put off.
It's interesting because I do have a 6,000 film watch list that I
Oh.
carefully curated through the history of cinema. It would probably be stuff from like very early on, like uh early winners of like Best Picture. Like I think Wings would definitely be one that I want to check out. I want to continue to expand my horizons in terms of like Japanese cinema because like I've watched a lot of Kurosawa and I want to keep lists like today in particular for my tournament for Welcome to the Wasteland we have Masasaki Kobayashi who did Harakiri. Love that film, absolutely incredible, but he also did the Human Condition trilogy, which are three films that
Hmm.
I would love to check out. It's one of those kinds of things where it's like probably the films that I probably haven't watched are like more of like the fun movies that like here's the thing, up until extremely recently, I had only watched like three Fast and Furious movies. Cause like
Hmm.
I've never had like the interest. I haven't watched Fast Seven at this point, and that's the big emotional one. Or Fast
Hmm.
Five, which apparently is the best one. So I feel like a lot of those like and it just to throw this in there, I don't really have like a quote unquote, as you would say, I know what you mean, like a watch list kind of thing, but like I don't feel any shame for movies that I haven't watched because it's like if somebody's like, you haven't watched that, it's just like, how many movies have you watched?
That's fair.
And to be frank, like 99% of people who I talk to have probably watched less movies than me. So
Hmm.
it's the kind of thing where it's like I always want to keep expanding my horizons. And
Hmm.
I'll keep doing that. And there's definitely some on my list that I definitely want to get around to. Like I especially after franchise Paradiso doing this whole horror thing, horror is a big blind spot for me. And like I've seen in its entirety, probably three Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I've seen the first one. I saw Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Freddy vs. Jason. So
I
like
mean, you could have stopped at Freddy versus Jason, and that would have been perfectly fine.
so like there's a lot of like I just watched Child's Play for the first time. So like that was a big one.
Really?
I haven't watched any I haven't watched any Paranormal Activity or Final Destination. Like all
Okay.
those like escaped my viewing. Because here's the thing, I hated horror movies because I'm a big baby. I just watched The Ring for the first time. So
Oh,
like
wait,
I
the American remake or the better
know
Japanese one?
the American remake. I have yet to watch Ring.
Okay.
So it's on the list.
Hmm.
Um, but like I just finally went through and watched every Halloween movie.
Oh,
Uh
that must have been a fun experience for
minus
you.
minus the two Rob Zombie ones. I haven't gotten around to watching those two yet.
Why'd you skip those?
Well, I didn't skip them.
Oh,
Like I had seen the Dave Gordon Green trilogy because I watched all of them as they came out.
right.
So like those are the last two. If you watched from the beginning chronologically, that I hadn't watched yet, and then like Halloween passed. My wife stopped picking Halloween movies to watch. It's funny because most of the time I watch things off my watch list is because it's like I give my wife options to pick from because she hates to make decisions. And she's like, "What's on your watch list?" "Oh, it's Halloween." What's the next Halloween movie we haven't watched? And
Mhm.
boy, that was a journey. For
Yeah.
sure. So I've only watched like the new Hellraiser. I've never watched any of the originals. I've only seen the new Candyman. So like I need to go back and watch the original Candyman. So there you go. My list of shame is I don't watch enough horror movies. So
Okay. Okay.
see, it
So,
took time. I got there.
some of those are pretty interesting that those have been left off the list. Like I adore the original Candyman movie,
I've heard
even
many
though
great
it
things.
terrified me a lot. And I love the music for it. Plus, also it takes place in Chicago, so soft spot there.
There you go. But yeah,
Okay,
so I need to
so
watch more horror movies. So
so last question I have for you in honor of something that I suggested on SiftPop that didn't make the cut, which I totally get. What is your favorite fight ever in a movie?
that's really hard to come up with off the top of my head. Oh,
Because there's different layers to it. Because
I'm gonna
if you
like
think about,
Cinefix this. So
okay,
if you
that's
ever
fine.
watch the top 10 video from Cinefix, it's like each one's a category and then they have a whole bunch of honorable mentions. Like some of the ones that popped in my head, I'm like, do I pick that amazingly shot duel from Harakiri, which is so amazing, or like the real fight from Rashomon?
Hmm.
So like the real one because it's so messy and awkward. Do I pick like John Wick?
Mm,
I really do love that fight with Killa
yeah.
from John Wick Chapter 4. Oh my god. The fact that they got Scott Adkins in a fat suit and still doing all those fun stunts. That's definitely up there. Like soft spot for like, Mortal Kombat, the 95 movie. And is it Liu Kang versus Reptile? And where he starts like pulling out like the actual moves from the game, or Johnny Cage versus Scorpion.
That Johnny Cage versus Scorpion fight is pretty high up there, but
Yeah.
also I there's something about Liu Kang versus Shang Tsung that fight was
So
obviously well crafted. Yeah, it's a great fight.
and then like if you really think about it, when you get down to anything from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or I just watched Ip Man for the first time this past year for Roam the Wasteland, and just the fight scenes in that are incredible. It's just or like lightsaber battles. Like, what's my favorite lightsaber battle? Honestly, my favorite lightsaber battle is probably from like the animated Star
Hmm.
Wars stuff because damn, they have such good fights. Um, it's just so many. I did love that Ahsoka versus Anakin. That had so many emotional layers to it. But it's
Hmm.
just what's my I'm trying to think like
You haven't
when
even
it
gotten to
comes
like the Rocky movies or anything like that. Any of those
to
Rocky
like
fights.
yeah, boxing um is my favorite Rocky fight. I guess I'd have to probably go with Rocky 2
Mm,
because that's slow motion. They both drop to the ground, and who's gonna get up? Or even like it's an abstract kind of thing, but like even the fights from Raging Bull, they're so
hmm.
like really interestingly shot and everything. But or there's just so many great options there. I'm trying to think what I if I really come down to it. Oh, duh. This one, in hindsight, now that I really thought about it, is easy. My favorite movie fight is that back alley brawl between Rowdy Roddy Piper and Keith David from They Live, because
Hmm.
that was 100% not necessary for that movie,
Oh
but
yeah.
they did it, and it lasted 15 minutes, and
Hmm.
it was fantastic. I think they really beat the shit out of each other, to be perfectly honest. Oh,
Right.
yep, that's number one. That
Okay.
that is that is exactly the number one. You go, John Carpenter.
I was going because I was talking about this a little bit with Nick, who
Uh,
for our podcast, Geek Speak Louder Than Nerds. And we were talking about some of those old school categories for the MTV Movie Awards, back in the day when those movie
yeah.
awards was actually a lot of fun. So one of the things that we talked about then was, you know, best fight, best kiss, best villain, all those cool categories that the Oscars would never touch. So
Oh, and
that's where
now
that
now
came.
I'm just thinking of Matrix too, because
Can't forget
Ne-
about that one.
Neo versus Agent Smith, whether it's the first Matrix or even the Dragon Ball Z ripoff fight that they do in Revolution.
Hmm.
So, which yes, it is literally just a Dragon Ball Z fight.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I learned
that's
that from Honest Trailers. But
very, very nice. Very
those are
nice.
both very, all three of those are very good questions, Mike. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah,
See,
for
now we
sure.
could just make our own best ever fight list because I feel like I just came up with enough for us to fill a whole entire list.
I mean, I could easily do a top 10 if I thought about it by myself
Yep.
long enough. So, I mean, y-
Maybe that's an idea for Wasteland Talks at some point, and we can talk about that later.
okay, I will be there and it will be great.
It'll be glorious. But oh, now I'm thinking Gladiator. That Tigers fight.
Oh, that
But anyway, Mike, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on. Hope to be back for round four, maybe sooner than the gap between round two and three.
Absolutely. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.